All right, today we have a topic which I think a good number of devotees will find at least interesting. The topic of the talk is innovations. Innovations according to time, place, and circumstance, which you could say were introduced by Srila Prabhupada or done by him or what have you. And the first one is one that Srila Prabhupada spoke of himself. Now, let me just say a couple things before we just go through the list. There are 25 items on our list, 25 innovations. We're calling them innovations, and we will post this list on the Facebook pages that have the video link. Right. But the list is too long to put in the description on the YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. All right, so these are very interesting. I think it's just interesting to note. But they have a value also in that some of these innovations, for some people, are complaints. They are complaints against Srila Prabhupada that, Swami Maharaj did this or he did that. That is not bona fide. That is not correct. That is this. That is that. So there's a reason for each one of these, and so we might get into the reasons and what have you. Now, just before I called you up, Giri, I realized that, next we want to make the innovations introduced by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta.
Right.
And these are even more profound.
Especially for the time.
Yeah, especially for the time. Srila Prabhupada's innovations were not so profound in the sense that they were in the Western world and tradition and orthodoxy was totally unknown. So his innovations were not contrast against something else. Mm-hmm. And I'll explain some of these things. Like some of his innovations in the West were not allowed in Vrindavan or Mayapur.
Right.
Or even in India in general. Because those innovations were contrast against a background of thousands of years of tradition, hundreds of years of Gaudiya tradition, and would have been seen as obstacles rather than any adjustment for progress. So an innovation is usually something that means it is done for the purpose of progress. You see. So I'm not going to get into the ones of Bhaktisiddhanta, but the two that I'll mention just right here sort of set the stage. As he introduced the sannyas ashram and the well, we call it the saffron dress. It's not saffron. This color is actually called geru.
Right.
And it is made from a clay. And in the time of Bhaktisiddhanta, no swamis were wearing pink. They were all wearing cloth dyed with the natural clay called gerumati. So anyway, he introduced, prior to that, the dress of the Gaudiyas since almost the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or shortly thereafter, let's say from the era of this, followed by the six Goswamis. The dress was a white dress.
Right.
And it was the Paramahansa dress known today as the Babaji Vesh. So he introduced that, and that was quite revolutionary. That sent shock waves around Bengal and Vrindavan. And another innovation he did is he gave Upanayana, the Brahman Diksha, the Brahma-gayatri and other gayatris to men who were not born in Brahmin families. And I mean, this could send shockwaves, and I'm sure it did, among those who knew about it across the whole of India, what to speak of just Bengal and Vrindavan and such things. So these were innovations.
And especially because Brahma-gayatri was given to children at 12 years old, he's giving to grown men who aren't even in Brahmin families.
Yeah, very much very much an innovation, and that innovation contrasts tremendously against culture and tradition that had been in effect for centuries. All right, so now we're going to move on to these 25 innovations in the Sankirtan movement introduced by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So some of these become controversial, and some of accusations, even in our time, in the last 2 decades, some of these issues have been brought up, some of these innovations, and so it's good for devotees to know what these were. There may be more than this, but this is the list we came up with yesterday of 25. So I'll begin with number 1. And the first one is an innovation that Srila Prabhupada speaks about himself. I believe I either read it in a letter or it was in a recorded, a tape conversation where Srila Prabhupada says the only thing he did is sort of in addition to what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had already done was that as a sannyasi, Srila Prabhupada performed the marriage function for his disciples so that boys and girls would be married. Yes, it's a letter, that's right, because I just read it last week again. It's a letter. And so he says that he as a sannyasi, because traditionally sannyasis, for example, in South India, sannyasis in the Madhva Sampradaya, they don't do fire yajnas. They don't do swaha and throw the ghee in the fire. They're not supposed to touch fire. They don't even cook food. You see, they in other words, they don't go in the kitchen and cook for Krishna and Udupi. Not the sannyasis. That's all done by the householder men and the Brahmins. So that was an innovation in Gaudiya Mutt, pretty much, as far as I'm aware, sannyasis were not doing fire yogas. Well, particularly they were not doing marriage functions. But because there was nobody else there to do this, Srila Prabhupada did do this. Mm-hmm. But actually, and he just mentions that one, and maybe on that day that one was just in his mind. But if we just pay a little close attention to the things that he did and know what things were done in the Gaudiya Sampradaya since the time of Bhaktisiddhanta, particularly from the time of Bhaktisiddhanta, then we see there are 24 more innovations, and they are in contrast to tradition that was followed by Bhaktisiddhanta. They are innovations which some people have preferred to call deviations. You see. So that's why this is entitled Innovations in Time, Place, and Circumstance, because it is always the responsibility and the duty of an acharya to adjust the Sankirtan movement according to the time, the place, the culture, the circumstances, etc. Right. So that was the first one. Srila Prabhupada mentions that one himself. As a sannyasi, he performed the fire ceremony for the initiation, wedding ceremony of his disciples. Okay, number 2 on the list, which has over the years brought up a little bit of controversy, and that is Srila Prabhupada gave Brahma-gayatri to his women disciples. Mm-hmm. Now, in case anybody doesn't know what Brahma-gayatri is, who's listening to this, that's the first line of the Gayatri mantra, which devotees in the Gaudiya Sampradaya receive at the time of mantra diksha, or as we call it in the West, second initiation. So in not only in the time of Bhaktisiddhanta, but in all the Sampradayas, with exception of only the rarest exceptions, women do not receive the first line of Gayatri, Brahma-gayatri. And one of the reasons for this, which I heard from Shanta Maharaj, one of Bhaktisiddhanta's disciples and a godbrother of Srila Prabhupada, was that the Brahma-gayatri is a Purusha Bhav mantra. Means it's a masculine mantra. And it is usually only given to women who are basically yoginis, like really advanced, and or women who have aged beyond their, I don't know what they call that, but it's their monthly cycle. In other words, women who are 65 and 70 years old, but in addition to that, who have a more serious interest in the philosophy and such things of Krishna consciousness, then they may be given this Brahma-gayatri. Otherwise, the women are given a mantra diksha beginning with the Guru mantra, Guru Gayatri, Gaur mantra, Gaur Gayatri, etc., like that.
It's a very controversial thing for decades now in India about women chanting any Vedic mantra. It's a controversy everywhere.
Yeah. Well, I think in the Hare Krishna movement, it only came to surface when certain elements from the Gaudiya Mat, some favorable, some not favorable, but the West came in connection with that. And then also more recently, Western Hare Krishnas coming in contact with Babas at Radhakund and Govardhan. And when they find out that Swami Maharaj, Bhaktivedanta, when they find out that he gave, Brahma-gayatri to women, well, some of them come out very rudely and will say, well, that's nonsense, you see.
Of course, the same people say that he shouldn't have given Brahma-gayatri to even Westerners.
Yeah, period. It starts, once you fall into that trap, it just goes all the way down. The line is that you can just flush the Hare Krishna movement. All of it. We can't worship deities. We can't chant mantras. You can't do yagyas. In fact, I had one Brahmin tell me in India, "You're not even human."
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, yeah, that might be true, and as regards some of us." Yeah, Prabhupada did have some pretty rough disciples. Rough around the edges, at least. All right, so Srila Prabhupada, this is a big innovation. Yep. Now, there's a history to that, and I don't know all the detail of it, but when Srila Prabhupada did call the devotees for second initiation for the first time, none of the women were called. And I heard this from Brahmananda Swami, one of Prabhupada's early disciples, and he told me something of the story that after the function was over, Prabhupada was going back to his quarters, and he was waylaid by my god sister Jadharani, or as she is known today, Shamarani, and waylaid Prabhupada on the way and was quite insistent that the ladies need to be included. So someone raises the question and says, well, look, it's still a Purusha Bhav, it's still a masculine mantra, and it's be given to women. And I sometimes say, yeah, but women in the West aren't like women in India. They're more like god brothers than god sisters. With all due respect to the Matajis out there, Western women are quite masculine in many ways. So anyway, so that was done, and he did that, and that's been the standard ever since. So people do find fault with that. All right, moving on to number 3. Number 3 and 4 also involve women, Vaishnavis. Prabhupada allowed his female disciples to cook for the deities. Now, anywhere you go in India to a traditional temple, whether it's Jagannath Puri or Sri Rangam or Udupi or any Gaudiya Mutt that I've ever visited or known of, you will not find any women in the kitchen. So this was an innovation also to allow women to cook for the deities. Now, once again, I was a guest at a Gaudiya Mutt, and so in one part of the beginning of the conversation, this Brahmin sannyasi in the Mutt told me, "Oh, Maharaj, only men cooking for Krishna, And No women allowed in kitchen, only for cleaning pots, not for cooking. And a few minutes later, he told me, he said, "Oh, Maharaj, our kitchen's always dirty. So dirty, so dirty." And then I said, "Well, maybe if you let some of the mothers into the kitchen to do some cooking, the kitchen will be a lot cleaner." But that didn't happen. And neither did the kitchen get any cleaner. Okay, right. If you've ever been in these old Gaudiya Math kitchens, they're as black as a devil's waistcoat. I mean, anyway, moving on. So Srila Prabhupada introduced that women could cook for the deity. And then furthermore, number 4 is he introduced an innovation. He allowed his women disciples to go on the altar and do all the service, deity service on the altar, bathing, dressing, offering arti, etc., etc. Now, there's another big innovation. However, here, this innovation was cloaked. In Vrindavan and in Mayapur, well, I know that in Vrindavan, the mothers were allowed to go on the altar only after the curtains were closed. Mm-hmm. Not in any way that will be seen or recognized by the public.
Right.
And there were no ladies performing the artik. He allowed that everywhere else in the world, pretty much, even in, I don't know of any, I've never remember seeing one of the women on the altar in Hyderabad or Delhi or...
No, I think all the temples in India, it wasn't allowed.
Yeah, because that's just the standard. Everywhere, unless you go to some funky, bozo, backward nonsense ashram like the Brahma Kumaris, or
Sai Baba or something.
Sai Baba or Amma in Kerala, one of these nonsense Hindu spindu. Yeah, you might see some woman doing something, but in any Orthodox Parampara, Orthodox ancient temples, Shaivite, Vaishnav, it doesn't matter. So in Vrindavan, Srila Prabhupada just kept that standard because it would just bring too much criticism. Mm. In fact, when the deities at Krishna Balaram temple were installed, Prabhupada's disciples, all they did was kirtan.
Yeah.
All the mantras, everything else, Prabhupada sat and watched, devotees did kirtan, and Brahmins did the installation.
Yeah, local
Brahmins. And in Hyderabad, there was Sambat Kumar Bhattacharya, because, particularly in Vrindavan, the Krishna Balaram temple would not have been accepted.
Yeah. The
presence of Krishna would not have been recognized had the Pratishtha, the installation, been done by the Angresis, by the foreigners. Yep. You see? Yep. So he introduced that his disciples could worship the deities pretty much all over the world except in India and especially not in Vrindavan, at least in the public eye.
Right.
So that's a big, big innovation that he introduced. Mm-hmm. All right, so moving on, number 5. Srila Prabhupada sometimes, it's like this. When a deity is installed, particularly in the Gaudiya Math, and you have names, particularly when it's Radha Krishna, Mahaprabhu and Radha Krishna. You have Gaur Radha Govinda, Gaur Radha Shamasundar. You have, just like in Vrindavan, you have Radha Damodar, Radha Mother Mohan, Radha Shamasundar, Radha Raman. Everything, the deities have different names. So when Srila Prabhupada established deities in different places in the world, he gave names to those deities.
Right.
So yesterday when we were putting these things down on paper, we mentioned here, 4 Radha Krishna deities that Srila Prabhupada established, but he gave rather unorthodox names. Mm-hmm. Now, a couple of these names are, one might look at them and say, well, that's pretty cute. That's charming. That's pretty sweet. But it has happened that certain members of the Gaudiya Math who have come to the West, one particular Swami in particular, came to know about the names of some of the deities in the West And how to put it? He raised an objection. May have even suggested you should change that, you see. All right, so what we're talking about here, hang on a second. In London, Srila Prabhupada named the deities Radha Londonisvara.
I think that was a slap in the face of the British Empire. I really do.
Yeah.
Prabhupada came from that era where the British were ruling India, and his first deities in London were called Londonisvara, the Lord of London. The Lord of London,
yes. Yeah. And then later there was the Ratha-yatra at Trafalgar Square.
Yeah.
And the newspaper said that the Rath of Jagannath rivaled the statue of Lord Nelson. I think it was Lord Nelson, yeah. So there's a little bit of competitive ego going on there. But Radha Londonisvara, and then in Paris, there was Radha-Parisisvara. So these are what would fit into the category of unorthodox names. But then in Delhi, you also have the Radha-Partharathi. And Partharathi meaning the chariot driver of Arjuna. Radha-Partharathi. And in Los Angeles, you have the Rukmini Dvarkadish. Now, let me explain that if you go to the temple in Los Angeles and just as a guest and you say, you just catch a devotee who knows what's going on and says, and you ask him, do you have Radha Krishna deities in your temple? They're going to say yes. And then if you ask them, what are their names? What are the names of the deities? And the devotees will say, Rukmini Dvarkadish. So, in one sense, that's quite the contrast.
Right.
You have Radha Krishna deities, but their names are Rukmini Dvarkadish. So, and of course that's New Dwarka, so 1 and 1 equals 2. You can connect the dots. New Dwarka, Rukmini Dvarkadish.
Right.
But the question is that Rukmini? Well, someone might say, well, yeah, that's actually Rukmini and Krishna. And no, it isn't. Because number one, in Dwarka, Krishna doesn't play a flute.
Right.
That is not his, what do you call that? That's not his paraphernalia.
Right.
That's part of his Vrindavan paraphernalia. Krishna is not playing a flute at Kurukshetra.
Right.
He's carrying a sword and yielding a chakra. So that is Radha Krishna in Los Angeles ISKCON Temple. But their names are Rukmini Dvarkadish. So some Gaudiya, modern Gaudiya Vaishnava Swamis who have come to the West have found that rather uncomfortable. And they could not see the charm, the beauty, or the necessity. Go ahead.
Just thinking about Radha-Partharathi, I found a quote from Srila Prabhupada in connection to that.
Yes.
Because Partharathi means the chariot driver of Arjuna. So Achyutananda Swami had asked Prabhupada this when he was in Nellore in South India about how is it possible that Radharani is with the chariot driver of Arjuna. He couldn't understand the connection there. So it says here, this is in Harishori's diary. Prabhupada answered, when Krishna is Partharathi, Radha is out of him? Does it mean? Radha Krishna pranaya vikriti hladini shaktir. When he is fighting, the hladini shakti is also there. It is not manifest.
Yes. And also, that's philosophical and that's substantial, but in a general sense, that's Krishna and his consort. Well, Krishna has many names. He's Partharathi, he's Damodar, he's many, many things. And so that's Radha Partharathi, and he's being called by his name when he is the chariot driver. So from both angles of vision, what's the problem?
Yeah.
But oftentimes people who have spent their whole life surrounded by tradition and are then suddenly thrust into the world of the Sankirtan movement are slow to grasp some of these innovations. Well, Srila Prabhupada was at the, as they say, leading the army from the front, not from the rear. He was leading from the front, and he was doing battle with Maya. And
what was the reason why Srila Prabhupada named the deities Rukmini Dvarkadish in L.A.?
Reason? I'm not prepared to say reason, but, the two dots seem similar. It's named New Dwarka. Why? Well, it's the most western part of continental United States, more or less.
Right.
The bulge in California is kind of the area around the most western point. I'm not getting in the details like, well, Alaska's farther, and then why did he name New Navadvip, Hawaii ashram New Navadvip? Because it's on islands, It's like, it wasn't to the detail tit for tat, but it was like that. Also, L.A. was established. It was the center of the standard of deity worship.
Very opulent.
Very opulent at the time of the movement was rising up in the early 70s. Those portions of the Bhagavatam, Krishna enters Dwarka, and all these things were coming out and being printed. And even to this day, the general, it's like almost a general goal of a temple anywhere or an ashram is to achieve opulence. And I must have heard this word tens of thousands. That's really opulent, Prabhu. Opulence, opulence. Got to be opulent. And the irony is, actually, Gaudiya Vaishnavism is on the other side of the scale.
Yeah.
It's on the simplicity side, And you really see this in Gaudiya Mutt temples. They do not strive for opulence, So anyway, Dwarka opulence, and that's a whole other topic. Dwarka, like when in Raganuga Bhakti, one does not meditate on the Dwarka Lila pastimes.
Yeah, Dwarka Dhyanam is forbidden, and Rukmini Puja.
Yeah, there you go, Rukmini Puja. So this really brings out a lot of controversy for those people from the Gaudiya tradition who are a little more steeped and in many senses more learned than the Western average devotee, you would say, in those traditions that Gaudiya Vaishnavism isn't all about sadhana forever. No, sadhana is the first part of bhakti to be progressed into Raganuga Bhakti, and in Raganuga Bhakti, Krishna's Leela and Dwarka is not meditated upon. Rukmini is not worshipped. Most devotees don't know that Rukmini is actually the incarnation or the expansion of Chandravali, who has a second position in Vrindavan Leela. And whereas Radharani, who has the principal and primary position in Krishna, in Vrindavan Leela, she appears in Dwarka Leela in a secondary position as Satyabhama. So, therefore, the deities in Los Angeles are definitely not that's not Rukmini standing by Krishna.
No.
That is Radharani.
Yeah.
But there she's been given the name Rukmini, and the Gaudiya Mutt knows that, Rukmini is actually Chandravali, They would probably suggest, it should be Satyabhama Krishna. You see? But Satyabhama wasn't the principal queen in Dwarka, and this is New Dwarka, and therefore Rukmini Krishna, but it's actually Radha Krishna.
Yeah. A spirited thing.
A spirited thing. As Sridhar Maharaj called it, a spirited thing. In the spirit of preaching, many things of this nature may be done. Palena priya prichate. We will judge it by the result. And New Dwarka became the seat of the BBT and the
Western headquarters.
BTG, Western headquarters. And I don't know, maybe it still is today. I'm not up on the latest, but that's what it was anyway. All right, so Srila Prabhupada, in his innovation, he named various deities in a rather unorthodox manner. All right, number 6. What is that? Oh, Srila Prabhupada did not introduce to us at any time, either in the beginning, in the middle, or even up to the present day, the let's say particularly ISKCON temples, Srila Prabhupada's temples, do not follow the orthodox manner of kirtan and bhajan as established by Bhaktivedanta and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. So let me point to first a very simple example, and then we'll draw out a couple other examples. Well, for example, let's go till 8:30 in the morning in Prasadam time. In the temples, the devotees begin to say Sarirada Vijajal. Well, in the Gaudiya Math, you must say the prayer before that Bhaktivedanta has written, Mahaprasada Govinde.
Oh, that's from Mahabharata. That's
from Mahabharata. But both these prayers are chanted in the time of Bhaktisiddhanta. Okay? Up to the present day in Gaudiya Math. Before Prasadam, these two prayers are said. And on a feast day, they'll say the Jayom prayers for at least... I've seen the Jayom prayers go on for 15 minutes. Naming every associate of Mahaprabhu until everything is cold.
Actually, the Sharira Vijaya prayer, there's another 2 parts to the Ek Dine Shanti Pure.
That's right. That's right. And they sing the whole thing, whereas we then, particularly back then in ISKCON, would only sing one part, and pretty much in most places they only sing the one part.
Yeah.
And that didn't even begin right away. That didn't even happen until about almost close to a decade. The movement was a decade already functioning. Okay, that's one thing. But I think more importantly is there's a manner of bhajan. Bhajans means the song. There's an order in which they are sung. And in the Hare Krishna movement, we don't sing any of them, really. In the temples, you sing Jai Radha Madhava before Bhagavatam class because Prabhupada did. You sing Sri Guru Charana Padma in Guru Puja because that is a Guru Puja song. And you sing Samsara at Mangal Artik, but Samsara is not the song.
That's not the Artik song.
That's not the Artik song from Mangal Artik.
It's Bali Gaura Gadadhar.
Yes, Bali Gaura Gadadhar. Gaur Gadadhar. That's another thing. We'll get to that. Prabhupada never installed any Gaur Gadadhar. So you're not going to have an Artik song about Gaur Gadadhar. Whatever.
The evening song, Jaya Jaya Gaura Chanda, is only half the Artik song.
That's right. It's only half of the Artik song.
Yeah.
So it's not, we're not looking here, we're not pointing at any fault. We're simply saying under the circumstances, what are those different circumstances? Well, I'll tell you. If you live in India, and particularly in those days, you don't have anything to do but chant songs, sing mantras, chant japa 64 rounds. You have an ashram, a temple in the West, whether it was in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, or in the 21st century, you don't have time to sit around all day chanting japa, plus, or singing songs. I mean, when my friend Bodhayan Maharaj from Srila Puri, the successor of Srila Puri Maharaj, he came to stay at our ashram in South India once for about a month. And after the 3rd day, he came and he said, "Oh Maharaj, if you can please excuse me, I'll not attend the morning program." And I said, "That's fine, Maharaj. You're welcome to stay in your room, do whatever you want while you're here." He said, "Yes, I cannot adjust to the way you do the songs." He couldn't adjust because he is used to following the songbook, the Saranagati, and there's an order of so many songs. And the ones we do sing, we sing ass backwards. We sing the second one first, the third one's first, we just got it all. And so Srila Prabhupada did give emphasis to the holy name, however.
Right. That's another one.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. Even how the Maha Mantra is chanted. Mm-hmm. There are 2 places in the world where the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is chanted by the leader, and then the chorus sings. The whole mantra, we call it the whole mantra. There's 2 places in the world where that is done. ISKCON and one of the 13 Sahajiyas, Sampradayas. I forget which one it is. All other branches of the Gaudiya Mutt, from the time of Bhaktivinoda and Bhaktisiddhanta Gaudiyas, you'd have to say, divide the mantra. They're actually not dividing it because it's already divided. If you look at the Sanskrit, at the end of Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, there are 2 lines.
Yeah.
That's a break. The mantra is already given in 2 parts. Now, I have seen devotees just almost go into an epileptic fit when they were caught somewhere where this was going on. They didn't even know how to respond, or they thought, oh my God, this is they're
breaking the mantra.
They're breaking the mantra. But the irony is, there's a beautiful tape. It's played in temples all over the world. Probably half of you listening to this video have got the recording on your computer, but you've never really listened. And it's where Srila Prabhupada is chanting solo, not japa. He's singing, and he's breaking the mantra. He sings Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, and then he repeats it as the chorus. He's playing both lead and chorus. Now, why is that? Because that's the way His Divine Grace chanted the Hare Krishna mantra practically his whole life. Now, there's also a reason for that. And that is in Bengal, in a time without microphones and so many things, and the masses of people, to get them chanting in unison and not getting the whole thing just convoluted. It's also practical. Just saying half the mantra, then half the mantra, then half the mantra. In Africa, when we used to go on Sankirtan with Brahma-gayatri Swami and Bhagavad Das and Chayavana, we had a big van. We would get on top of that van, and for the benefit of the Africans, we would do the kirtan 1 word at a time. The person with the microphone would go, Hare, and you got 250 Africans out there with spears going, Hare, and we would do the mantra. And Brahmananda told me years later, he said, we never were able to get these people to chant the full mantra. Ever. Even in the temple, when the Africans were in the temple. So, anyway, not to be down on the Africans, but out there in the tribes, it's a little difficult,
There's also the Panchatattva mantra as well.
Oh, yes. Then this regulation came. Now, Srila Prabhupada didn't give any regulation one way or the other than the Panchatattva Maha Mantra to be chanted before the kirtan, And at a point I heard back in the 1990s that there had been some law or regulation laid down on the Panchatattva Maha Mantra that it should not be chanted more than 3 times. And when I heard that, I remember once I was at I think it's the mutt, the Gaudiya Mutt where Srila Prabhupada was initiated in Allahabad.
Sri Rupa Gaudiya Mutt.
Sri Rupa Gaudiya Mutt in Allahabad. Yeah. So I went there during a Kumbh Mela, and there was a big festival going on, and the kirtan started, and we chanted the Panchatattva Maha Mantra for half an hour. So how many times you chant a mantra in a half an hour? I don't know, 50, 100, whatever,
Yeah.
So later on, when I heard that some leadership body in ISKCON had come up with the idea that you can't chant the Maha Mantra more than Panchatattva Mantra more than 3 times, I was remembering that. So there is no such regulation like that, but if they want to put their regulation, no problem.
That reminded me one thing, Guru Maharaj, is in Bhaktisiddhanta's time, when chanting japa, you start with the Panchatattva Maha Mantra, you go all the way to the end of your beads, you turn around, you carry on chanting Hare Krishna. You only chant it once. It's not that you chant the Panchatattva Maha Mantra every time you finish one round.
Yeah, but those are details that are they're not one way and or the other.
Sure. Sure.
Okay, but that's going to get into a more interesting innovation here. as we go down. So, let's just sum that one up and say the orthodoxy of how songs are to be sung, what songs are to be sung at what times, where. Oh, I might mention that after 1977 and Srila Prabhupada, his samadhi was established after His Divine Grace departed the world. His samadhi was established, and so for the Mangal Artik, everywhere in ISKCON, I think probably it's still the same, they sing the Samsara prayers for the Mangal Artik. So they were going to have, as they still do today, an Artik at Srila Prabhupada's samadhi. And so they chose that they will sing the Samsara prayers at the samadhi. Well, that's fine. However, it's been the tradition since the time of samadhis practically that for the acharya at the samadhi, a special artik song should be written for the acharya. And that will be known as the samadhi artik song. That's true of every one of Prabhupada's godbrothers who has had a samadhi built for him, with maybe the exception of Krishnadas Babaji, I'm not sure. But Sridhar Maharaj, and Madha Maharaj, and Saranga Goswami Maharaj, and all Prabhupada's godbrothers, and Tirtha Maharaj, and everybody, if you ever went to their samadhi in the Mangal Artik, there's a samadhi artik song. But the devotees decided that maybe they didn't even know about this, I don't know, but the decision was made to sing Samsara at Prabhupada's samadhi. But then the question was, well, what are we going to sing for artik? Well, at that time, Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj from Mathura suggested that for the Krishna Balaram artik, what song did he suggest?
Viva Bharisesha.
Viva Bharisesha. And so that song, under the suggestion of Narayan Maharaj, is sung. And the irony of this is, so many years later, the two parties, practically speaking, went to war with each other. ISKCON against Narayan Maharaj against ISKCON. But anyway, he is the one who suggested that they sing that song. And as far as I know, that song is still sung there. So there's a bit of unorthodoxy in the singing of songs, the order of songs, which songs. And sadly, it has been neglected that there's never been a Samadhi Artik song written for Srila Prabhupada anywhere that I know of, except our ashram in South India, Govindaji Gardens, where we have our own Pushpa Samadhi of Srila Prabhupada, and where we have composed our own Artik song for Srila Prabhupada, which is sung there every morning. All right, so moving on. Which was that? That was
7. We're on 7 now.
Okay. Prabhupada did not follow the orthodox Gaudiya Sampradaya system of name and title giving for sannyasis. Now, I pointed out before, Srila Prabhupada, A.C., that's initials of his previous name, Abhay Charanaravinda. Bhaktivedanta is a title he received from a godbrother. And at that time, it was like title, name combined, and after that, he was known as Bhaktivedanta Prabhu. When he took sannyas in 1959 from Keshav Maharaj left that name, Bhaktivedanta, as his sannyas title. That's a title. Prabhupada's sannyas title is Bhaktivedanta. And then he was given a sannyasi name, which comes from the list of 108 names for sannyasis
in Gaudiya Kantahar,
listed here in Gaudiya Kantahar. Okay, right. in the chapter Sannyas Tattva, and that's from the Samvata Samhita. That's another topic. What is Samvata Samhita? So the sannyas ashram is established by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta in 1918. And it is followed in the Gaudiya up to the present day. And the system of name giving and title giving. All the names of every sannyasi that's come and gone or is here today in the Gaudiya Mutt has a name from one of those 108 names listed in the Gaudiya Kantahar. And they have a title. There's a system for picking the title also. It will begin
How many
with...
syllables?
It will begin with bhakti, and then it would be followed by at least a 3-syllable, suffix.
Yeah.
Srila Prabhupada did not follow that system. He followed the system mainly of just keeping the brahmachari name and adding Swami. Mm-hmm. Some might say he gave us his name. That's nice. Mm-hmm. Or there was some systems, not all the time, but for a good number of the Grihastha men who received sannyas, they became Goswamis, like, say, Satsvarup Das Goswami or Hri Dayananda Das Goswami. They kept a Das Goswami, but most of us who were brahmacharis, the Das was dropped, actually, and we just became Rameshwar Swami, Jagadguru Swami, or whatever it was. The Das was dropped. It seemed, I think, with a number of the householders, they kept the Das, so they were Das Goswami. Anyway, this was not the system established by Prabhupada's guru, Bhaktisiddhanta. So this was an innovation. And I might say here it was a simplification, because as many times as I have explained this to people, they seem to have the hardest time getting it right. Even some of my godbrothers who have been with me for 20 years, it took them 20 years to grasp the fact that I'm not Nrsinga Swami, I'm Swami, not a Singha, or not a Simha.
Yeah.
You see. And Prabhupada writes a letter and he explains, actually, I'm a Swami and Swami goes first, but my name is also Swami and that goes last, so 2 times Swami doesn't look good. And he explains, he writes, Tridandi Goswami A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, as is on his card, and he sends, I think this is a letter to Rai Ram.
Yeah.
All right, so this is an innovation from Bhaktisiddhanta's system. He did not follow this.
Towards the end, I think he did give a few of those names, didn't he? The last. Yeah,
but that didn't even follow the system exactly. Bhakti Prem Yogi. He added there was Bhakti Prem Yogi, Bhakti Chiru,
Bhakti Prabhav,
Bhakti Chaitanya Swami. There was like 4 or 5, but they were still they were given a title and they were just Swami. They were Swamis. Right. It wasn't that he named one, say like Swami Bhakti Chiru Damodar Maharaj.
Right.
Now that would be the full system established by Gaudiya Maharaj. So someone would say, what are you saying? He deviated from the system? It's like, you can pick a better adjective, or whatever that is. But being in the West, he simplified the system.
Right.
All right. But some people do look at these things as deviation. But in his simplification, he did give he may have even known intuitively that some of his old friends or godbrothers may complain about this. Mm. So he gives reference that when Mahaprabhu took sannyas, he kept his Keshava Bharati left him his brahmachari name, Chaitanya. Yeah. He mentions this in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Prabhupada is saying we follow this system. Mm-hmm. You see. So it is not a deviation. It is a orthodox. It is you could say a bona fide innovation. Mm. And that is the business of the, particularly of the acharyas, and that there's very oftentimes requirement for adjustments. So he simplified that for us. All right, we're going quite a few here. We got to move on a little more quickly. Srila Prabhupada did not introduce the standard of 64 rounds japa daily for his initiated disciples. Right? So I did hear from Brahma-gayatri Swami that in the very beginning, Prabhupada asked the devotees to chant 64 rounds a day. And this was an impossible task because it's an 8-hour job minimum. Mm-hmm. Minimum. It's 8 hours with your bead bag every day. And that's after your jaw and your tongue is conditioned to be able to do that. So that wasn't possible. Then Brahma-gayatri told me, then Prabhupada asked us to chant 32 rounds. That was also not possible. And so then Srila Prabhupada asked us to chant 16 rounds, and that became the standard. But what was the standard of japa and rounds in the time of Bhaktisiddhanta? 64 rounds. Mm-hmm. And he said, anyone who's not chanting 64 rounds is in Maya. So Srila Sridhar Maharaj was asked, well, how many rounds did the devotees vow to chant when they received Harinam Diksha? And he said, none. There was no such thing as vowing to chant a certain number. And when the devotees heard this, they were pretty surprised, you see.
Right.
That brings us to another point. I don't know if that's on here, but let me mention it now, and if it's one of the other points. Somebody would say, well, you vowed to chant 16 rounds. You vowed to follow the 4 regular principles. And that's actually an interpolation. Now, maybe in modern times, devotees vow. But in the time of Srila Prabhupada, and I remember my own initiation, especially, there were 15 of us. I was number 13. I was the unlucky 13. And when everybody was going up, and Prabhupada he didn't say, do you vow to chant 4 regular principles? Do you vow to follow the...
Do you promise?
Do you promise? Or any such thing. He was asking, are you chanting 16 rounds? Yes, Prabhupada. What are the 4 regular principles? He's asking, what are the 4 regular principles? No meeting, and they would say them over and over, each person. Mm-hmm. When he got to me, he would ask first, the person would come up and he would say, what is your name? And they would say John or Joe or Judy or whatever their names were, and then Prabhupada would ask them this and that about, do you chant? What are the 4 regular principles? And then he would give them their beads and say, your name is, and he would give them a name. Mm. So first he would ask their name, then he would ask the principles and ask them if they're chanting 16 rounds, and then he'd give them the beads. So there's no vow, but it's interpolated as a vow. That's not a vow, actually. But nowadays they say it's some sort of vow you promise to. And they've introduced the 5th regular principle, right? Which I believe is... There are 5 regular principles, actually, in the Bhagavatam. Not 4. There are 5. The 5th one is not to hoard gold. Mm-hmm. Now, that's another topic. But nowadays, the 5th regular principle is never leave ISKCON.
Yeah.
All right. Go down with the ship. All right, so... Going down with the ship. All right, so...
Number 9?
Oh, yeah. But... So anyway... just to tell my own little story here for a minute. So when I came up, Prabhupada said, what is your name? I said, Jack Prabhu. We all, you referred to yourself as Prabhu. What's your name? I'm Jack Prabhu. I'm John Prabhu. I'm Judy Prabhu or whatever. Everybody was a Prabhu, That was before they started saying Bhakta Bill or Bhakta Jack. Right. So Prabhupada didn't ask me what the 4 regular principles were. He probably thought I was too stupid to remember them. And he didn't ask me if I chanted 16 rounds. He just immediately said, your name is Jagat Guru Swami, and he gave me, Jagat Guru, and he gave me the beads. And that was quite a special name for the time, I think for all time. And there was a big noise, a big whoa, kind of in the crowd. So, anyway, the point is, in taking Harinam initiation, Srila Prabhupada did not take a vow from us. Now, yeah, a whole bunch of people want to argue about that. Argue away. All right, so but he did not introduce the 64 rounds, which was the standard of Bhaktisiddhanta. So someone will say, well, he's not giving what his guru gave. Well, you know what? Before Bhaktisiddhanta, maybe Bhaktisiddhanta is not giving what Gorkashore gave. I mean, this is a living thing, not a dead thing. And this is the problem, particularly with the Ritviks. They want to mummify the Sampradaya. Here it is. Boom, 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 boom. That's it. You're wrong. It's a living thing. And there are always adjustments. Of course, one can take undue advantage of that, and adjustments can become deviations also.
I think it's also important to point out that Bhaktisiddhanta, even with the chanting, was rather fluid in many cases as well.
Oh,
he
yes.
He said that the Amala should not starve at least 4 rounds a day.
Yes.
So he was.
Yes, Srila Maharaj said Srila Bhaktisiddhanta put more emphasis on service than on the number of rounds that you chanted.
Right.
Now, there once was a little story there in Chaitanya Saraswat Mutt in the 80s, and the conversation evolved to a point, and the devotees asked Srila Maharaj, said, "Oh, devotees that are living outside the temple, and they have jobs and they work and everything like that, how many rounds should they chant every day?" So the devotees were thinking, well, the guy's got an 8-hour day job, he's got to go shopping, he's got to take care of the wife and kids, he's got to take care of paint the house, and it's like, gee, grihastha life, we have so many duties. How many rounds should we chant? And Sri Ramar said 64 rounds a day. And everyone was shocked, you see. And then they oh my gosh, well, what about the devotees that live in the temple? How many rounds should they chant? And then he shocked them even farther, and he said, well, they don't have to chant any rounds. Because they're living with Krishna. So this has to be taken in balance.
Context. Yeah, there's a context there.
In context, you see. So he's making the point that don't look for a minimum. You're out there in the world. You're surrounded by Maya. Chant as much as you possibly can. Not search for a little bit of itsy bitsy witty, amount of japa and say, oh yeah, that's okay. But that also doesn't mean, you're living in the temple, you can just lay your beads on the. Once we were living with some sannyasis. We were all living together back in the 80s. And we noticed this one sannyasi's bead bag was laying over there on the bookshelf for about 5 days. And so my godbrother Tripurari Maharaj, he got a little piece of paper and he wrote on it, "Help, I'm starving."
Put it in the bead bag.
And he stuck it in the bead bag, right? And then later when this other Swami came in, he said, "Oh, hey Maharaj, isn't that your bead bag over there? I'm going to clean the bookshelf today. You want to take your bead bag?" So the Swami picks up his bead bag and sticks his hand in the bead bag, and there's this crumply paper in there, and he's like, he pulls it up. So, you can make excuses, you can find so many quotes from Shastra, you can find quotes from Acharyas, and then you can take these things out of context, which is a typical Christian practice.
Yeah.
Take everything out of context, and then to justify your deviation or justify your fallen condition. All right, number 9, Srila Prabhupada established the non-Gaudiya Sampradaya deities, such as Sitaram and Lakshman in Bombay, and Kalyamardana Krishna in Fiji. Now, in the Gaudiya Sampradaya, particularly we are interested from the time of Bhaktivedanta, there are no Sitaram and Lakshman. We don't worship Sitaram and Lakshman. Actually, in Bombay, it's Krishna Balaram and it's Radha, Krishna, and Balaram in disguise. But the devotees in that temple, some of the pujaris think I'm a Ram Bhakta.
Yeah.
They're not Ram Bhaktas. The question is, are you any kind of a Bhakta? But you're not a Ram Bhakta. So why did he do that? Because in Bombay is not the political capital of India, but in those days it was the who's capital of India. And financial capital, and even to this day it remains so. And anybody in who's who is in Bombay, or now Mumbai. The worship of Sitaram, there's we're talking millions, not thousands, a couple hundred, millions of Ram Bhaktas. Mm-hmm. So it's a preaching innovation. He established the deities of Sitaram and Lakshman and Hanuman, so that the Ram Bhaktas would also be inclined to come to the Radha Rasabihari temple in Bombay. So these are, and in Fiji, Fiji was, they told Prabhupada that the rumor is that there used to be a great serpent that lived in Fiji, and the Hindus say it was Kaliya came here. And
after being kicked out from
the Jamuna, he went to this place in the ocean and inhabited these islands. And Prabhupada said, well, if that is true, there will be no other snakes there because Kaliya would have eaten them all. And they said, yes, Prabhupada, there are no snakes in Fiji, no land snakes. So then that just evolved, and he established the Kaliya Mardana Krishna. Now, I might mention, at that time, Prabhupada was invited by Pejwar Swami to come down to the, what's it called, the Pariah? Not Pariah.
Pariaya.
Pariaya. Pariah means rejected. Pariaya in Udupi, and Prabhupada wrote back and said, appreciate the invitation, but I'm off to Fiji to install Kaliya Mardana Krishna. But still, to this day, the devotees will say, oh, I got a deity of Kaliya Krishna. Saying, no, you don't have a deity of Kaliya Krishna. You have a deity of Kaliya Mardana Krishna. Kaliya Krishna means like a consort or a partner with Balaram. With Krishna, like Radha Krishna is a consort, and Balaram, Sitaram, like that. It's Mardana. Kaliya Mardana Krishna means Krishna dancing. So he told Pejwar Swami, I'm going to Fiji to install the Kaliya Mardana Krishna. In the Madhva Sampradaya, there is Kaliya Mardana Krishna in the Madhvas, in their mutts. In fact, our ashram near Udupi is on a piece of land that for about 700 years belonged to Kaliya Mardana Krishna in Udupi, but the government usurped that land and gave it away, and then 2 generations later we bought that land from some people, and when we got the original land papers, the papers went back 500 years, and the land belonged to Kaliya Mardana Krishna. And that is why we established there at that ashram near Udupi the deity of Kaliya Mardana Krishna. So, but these are unauthorized deities according to Gaudiya Mutt. Now, okay, moving on. Number 10, Srila Prabhupada introduced giving spiritual names to his disciples at the time of receiving Harinam. Now, this one is debatable, actually, because we weren't able to do a full research on that. So what we're saying is the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, which was practiced in the time of Bhaktivedanta and in the time of Bhaktisiddhanta, a disciple doesn't get a name like Ramdas or Govindadas or whatever, doesn't get a name until they're receiving mantra diksha. They get neck beads and a mala while receiving Harinam, but they don't get a name. Mm-hmm. So, but I seem to distinctly remember seeing this in other branches of the Gaudiya Mutt. So I was going to almost remove this one, but it may not be an exclusive introduction or something that just Srila Prabhupada did. And my feeling right now is, because I'm remembering other people who had first initiation from Srila Puri Maharaj, they received a name. But that's after the time of Prabhupada. So I don't know really. We'll have to do a little more research on that to find out. It could be an innovation or maybe not. But at one time it was followed in the Gaudiya Mutt quite strictly in the time of Bhaktisiddhanta. First initiation, you just kept the name whoever you were. Of course, there were no Joes, Marys, and Tom, Dicks, and Harrys. And then you got your name at the time of mantra diksha. All right, so leave that one, number 10. In fact, we may remove that one from the list because we're not too sure about that one. Number 11, however, yes, we're very certain about this one, as we were about the previous 9. Srila Prabhupada introduced performing the fire yajna for disciples receiving first initiation or Harinam. So we all remember that. Whenever it was possible in a temple, you would receive, whether Prabhupada was personally there or not there, and there was Harinam initiation, there was a fire yajna, swaha, and you threw your grains. Well, only people who have Brahman Diksha are actually eligible to throw grains in the fire. And we mentioned what was number 3 or 4 or whichever one it was. No, that's coming up. Or did we mention that? About women being allowed to throw grains in the fire.
That's the next one.
Oh, that's the next one after this. So Prabhupada introduced the fire yajna for even those receiving first initiation. And then number 12, he allowed women at the same time to offer grains. Now, in a fire yajna, anywhere you'll go in India, unless it's some hokey ashram somewhere, if any Orthodox, Madhva, Ramanuja, anywhere you go, in the ancient temples or anywhere in a yajna in Vrindavan, for whatever its purpose, women do not throw grains in the fire. So this is another innovation and I don't know what you call it, an allowance for the Vaishnavis, that he included them even in yajna. Oh my God. In India, this can burn that house down, you know. And so in India, we are very careful about these things, unless it's not a public event and it's closed in the ashram. Then also in our mission, the women offer grains in the fire. So this is an innovation. This is not a practice. This is introduced by Srila Prabhupada. And here is where the stress develops. Our innovations to become the standards, you see. Are innovations temporary? Should we go back to the older standards and different things like this? You know, well, this is for every generation, and this is for the spiritual leaders to figure out.
And I think the more dangerous thing is, should we continue making innovations?
Oh yeah, innovate. Well, yeah. Then you say, oh well, look. I mean, Bhaktivedanta. Actually, our whole mission is innovation. This Uttariya is innovation. Sannyasa is innovation. Brahma-gayatri. Actually, in Madhva Sampradaya, when the man takes sannyasi, he gives up chanting Brahma-gayatri. He takes off his thread. It's a class beyond Brahman. Beyond Brahman and beyond the Brahmins.
Right.
There's the whole of Gaudiya Math is an innovation, from riding in the car to taking sannyas to giving of sannyasis chanting Gayatri to Prabhupada allowing women to throw grains in the fire. This is what the Orthodox section freaks out about. We are unorthodox. Now we're saying we're unorthodox from the orthodoxy of Gaudiya Math, but Gaudiya Math is totally unorthodox. They wear shoes. The Swamis in South India don't wear shoes. If they do, they wear paduka, wood shoes.
Right.
Not a pair of Nike sneakers.
No stitched cloth.
No stitched cloth. I saw a picture the other day of some of my old friends at some big meeting in Mayapur, and man, they were dressed up, ironed up, spiffy, shaved up. Srila Prabhupada said, in the Dham, the men should not shave but once a month, and they should not wear sewn cloth. And everybody in there had kurtas with little sandalwood buttons and all this kind of, everyone was looking really spiffy. But Srila Prabhupada said, in the holy Dham, the men should not wear sewn cloth or shave their faces on a daily basis. But they all looked like they were pretty spiffed up for the occasion. Okay. Where are we now? Which one are we on?
We're 13, but we've done it actually.
Done 13. All right. What was 13? Srila Prabhupada had first in this. Oh, the vow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, 14. Srila Prabhupada had no, that's 14. Okay, 15.
13 and 14. Yeah.
Okay. Srila Prabhupada did not give the standard 9-string Brahmin thread of the Gaudiya Sampradaya to men receiving mantra diksha. Now, this is such a insignificant thing. However, if you go anywhere in the Gaudiya Math, and you just snag a brahmachari and grab his thread and pull it up, you're going to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There are 9 strings. Mm-hmm. And there's a reason for that. And the thread is tied in a certain way also. And it has to do philosophically. It's an external thing, very, very external, of course, but it has a connection. The 9 strings correspond to the 9 islands of Navadvip and the 9 processes of devotional service. But most of us just get our Brahman's threads from the market. So then someone says, well, why even bring this up? Because once upon a time I was in the archives and doing extensive research, and I was flipping through all the letters of Srila Prabhupada. It was a very tedious thing. And there was the letter that he would receive, a hard copy, that someone sent to him, and then stapled onto that, or with a paperclip, was the reply. So this was very interesting. Many letters, it helped to see the letter that was written to His Divine Grace in order to comprehend fully the response. But when you look up in the folio and other things and you get the letters of Srila Prabhupada, you don't get to see the letter that was written to him. And yeah, on some occasions, it makes a big difference in understanding why he wrote what he wrote in response to what, be it an attitude or a direct question. So when I was flipping through these things, I noticed that the secretaries would read the incoming letter to Prabhupada, and he would make responses, and they would scribble little footnotes in the margins or flip it over and write something on the back. You see? And on the back of one of these letters was a footnote by Prabhupada's secretary. And it was, Prabhupada says, Brahman thread 3 set 3. Mm-hmm. 3 set 3. So these 9 threads of a Brahman thread. They're tied together in a bunch of 3, then a bunch of 3, and a bunch of 3. So I'm just bringing it up that, okay, Prabhupada said. People are always saying, Prabhupada said. Prabhupada said his books are the law books. Prabhupada said this. Prabhupada said that. Well, I found that Prabhupada said, Brahman's thread 3 set 3. But it never, that's where it ended. It never went anywhere. So, Srila Prabhupada didn't care for these little things. But if you wanted to pick them up and do them according to Gaudiya tradition, he wasn't averse to you doing that. And there was the footnote was there from his secretary. Prabhupada says, Brahman thread 3 set 3. Mm-hmm. You see. So in our little mission, the men who are wearing Brahman's threads are wearing 9-string Brahman threads. All right. I keep losing the numbers here.
We're on 16 now.
Okay, Srila Prabhupada introduced a much simpler and easier system of following a codicy in contrast to the much, much stricter system established by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. So, Giri, tell us what does a codicy mean? What does a codicy mean in the time of Srila Prabhupada for us in the West? It meant no eating of grains.
Beans.
Grains and beans, and chanting 25 rounds as opposed to the daily 16 rounds. That was half-day fast, and then prasad, but no grains or beans, and chanting 25 rounds on that day. So Giri, tell us, what was a codicy standard in the time of Srila Prabhupada when he was in India going to and preaching in Gaudiya Math? What was the standard?
What was the standard in Gaudiya Math?
Yeah.
Standard in Gaudiya Math was either nirjala, or it was foods such as boiled peanuts, potato, and spinach, I think. And that's almost it. Mm-hmm. Things that were disallowed were tomatoes, no salt, no carrots, no spicing. Mm-hmm. It's very, very limited to what you can eat in Gaudiya Mata and Ekadashi. In that time. Very limited.
So Srila Prabhupada simplified that for us, and it became no grains. And again, that is based on a pastime of Mahaprabhu where he requests his mother, Sachimata, not to eat grains on Ekadasi.
Right.
You see? So it wasn't just something he created, but it was different from the Gaudiya Mata. Now, why would it be so important, say, in the time of Prabhupada in India, when he was a member, part of Gaudiya Mata? People forget that. Srila Prabhupada was a member of Gaudiya Mata. And actually, when Srila Prabhupada first arrived in the West, he wrote to the present Acharya at Yogapith, who was Bhaktivilas Tirtha Maharaj, and requested him to come to the West and be the Acharya and be the Guru. And Prabhupada says, I will work here on your behalf. Mm-hmm. So it's ironic that devotees sometimes fault Gaudiya Mata members for not joining in Prabhupada and the Sankirtan in the West. But I point this out, had Tirtha Maharaj come, Prabhupada wouldn't be your guru. Bhaktivilas Tirtha Maharaj would have been your guru.
Right.
Because Prabhupada says in that letter, he invites him to come as the Acharya, and that Prabhupada will work on his behalf.
As the head preacher.
So instead of condemning them for not coming, maybe you should thank your lucky stars. Like when I used to tell the story how Prabhupada's wife, sold his Bhagavatams to buy tea. I used to tell that story. And at the end of the story, I would say, Jai Prabhupada's wife.
Yeah.
Because if she was the good wife, the serving wife, the humble wife, he may have never walked out the door to do what he had to do. That was like the negative catalyst.
And she was the first one to distribute Prabhupada's books.
Yeah, right, to the chai shop. Right, so, here you have the Christians, Mm-hmm. Jesus died on the cross, resurrected, and all that hocus-pocus nonsense story to save the sins of the world.
Right.
But the Romans wouldn't have known who he was unless Judas pointed him out. But the Christians condemned Judas.
Right.
Why you condemn Judas? Jesus died for your sins. It had to be. Even Srila Sridhar Maharaj pointed this out. Why you're condemning Judas? Judas had to point out who the Christ is so that the Romans could arrest him, so all this could happen. So we don't condemn Prabhupada's wife. It's called the stroke of negative fortune. Mm. Uddhava was insulted in the family, and he left. But if had Uddhava, the great Uddhava from the Mahabharata, had he not been insulted, he would have stayed right there in the family. Very comfortable life living in the palace. He was insulted, and he left.
Oh, Vidura.
Who did I say?
Uddhava.
Uddhava, sorry.
Yeah, Vidura.
My aging brain. Vidura was insulted, you see. So the negative impetus is sometimes there by Krishna's arrangement. So in that way, we should also be careful of who and what we may criticize.
Number 17.
17. Srila Prabhupada did not introduce the orthodox system of Niyama Seva during the month of Kartik. In fact, nobody went to Vrindavan during Kartik in the time of Prabhupada. Mm-hmm. Kartik was it was the last month of the Chaturmasya, which was followed very minimally by not eating certain things during certain months, and the Kartik, and there was no emphasis on Kartik, not like today. You see, you would have to say that the Kartik Vrat and devotees going to Kartik in mass, sometimes hundreds, even thousands of devotees. This is a growth. This is something that is grown. This is not something that Srila Prabhupada introduced. He introduced the Mayapur yearly festival, which would then go to Vrindavan, and then back out into the world for preaching until the next year at Mayapur. Right. This huge Kartik festival is something that is very Gaudiya traditional, but it's not something that he introduced. But it's something we find that is very much in vogue today, very popular today. You see, right. But he himself did not give any stress to the month of Kartik. And as we have written in our Prabhupada Leela Smarana Mangala Stotram, that he chose the time of Kartik for his departure from this world, and that has drawn the whole world of his devotees to Kartik. From that point on, Kartik became significant. Number 18, Srila Prabhupada did not introduce the worship of Govardhan Shila in any of his temples or to any of his devotees. In fact, there was one story, it's just a short story, there was a devotee came through Bombay on his way back to wherever he came from, and he had a Govardhan Shila, and someone informed Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, tell him to go turn around, go back to Govardhan, and put that Shila back at Govardhan Hill. But now you'll find practically every sannyasi of note has a beautiful altar with Govardhan Shila, although their worship of Govardhan is sometimes very much misunderstood. Again, that's another topic, the worship of Govardhan, but Srila Prabhupada didn't introduce that, and there were certainly no Govardhan Shilas in any temples in India or elsewhere in the world, so I don't know how many do have them now, but I do know many of my sannyasi friends from ISKCON, they have their personal altars of Govardhan Puja, but Srila Prabhupada did not introduce this. And so this isn't really an innovation. You know, we put it here as an innovation. We're just pointing out here is something that has come to be prominent that he didn't introduce at all. You see? So you have the situation where Prabhupada didn't say it and he didn't do it, you shouldn't do it, but then you have these situations where you have things like the worship of Govardhan Shila going on in mass, in temples, and in individual pujas all over the world, not just sannyasis, householders, brahmacharis, so many people. Yep. So sometimes, you know, you get hit with, well, Prabhupada said, don't do this. Or Prabhupada never did that. And it just goes back and forth, you see. Kanishtas endlessly argue. Okay.
19.
Srila Prabhupada allowed, this was interesting. Srila Prabhupada allowed pictures of Radha and Krishna, Radha Krishna, Mahaprabhu, pictures of divinity to be put on the cover of books. You know, on what the heck happened? You know, just for example, Krishna and the Cowherd Boys, Srimad Bhagavatam, on the back cover too. But you will not find any Gaudiya Math publication from the time of Bhaktivedanta and Bhaktisiddhanta that put pictures of the Lord on the cover. Now, somebody will argue and say, well, you know, they didn't have the kind of printing facility, etc., that we have. And that's not the answer. They had printing facilities. If they wanted, they could have put pictures of Krishna on the covers. The reason they didn't was because where the books go, things get laid down on top of books. Books get laid face down. Somebody's reading this Bhagavatam and someone calls them and they fold it and they laid it down and they may lay it down upside down or right side up, it doesn't matter. Somebody else then comes along and lays a pen and lays the pen on top of the picture of Krishna. These pictures are windows to the spiritual world and they're absolute. So why did Srila Prabhupada allow this? Because it made the books more attractive in the preaching field. That's why. You go out there and you got just this plain, empty book in your hand. That's one thing. You go out there with a nice, beautiful, attractive window to the spiritual world and put it right up there in the face of that lost jiva. I don't have it here to tell you, but to show you, but once upon a time, devotee was distributing Bhagavatams in the canto of where Varaha fights Hiranyaksha.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a beautiful picture. I don't know if it's on the cover.
It's on the back cover, I think.
It's on the back cover. It's Varaha Day fighting with Hiranyaksha,
Yeah.
sword and shield and everything. And then the devotees, he's got the book, and he's pointing to the book, and the picture is there, and he's telling, this is the book about, the good destroying evil, God destroying evil. And the man looks at the book and he goes, why is God fighting a pig? Because Hiranyaksha's got all the jewels and armor and the white beard or whatever he had. And so the man goes, this is in the airport in Chicago, and the man says, well, why is God fighting the pig? And the devotee goes, no, God is the pig. So that's another controversy. Who are these books actually meant for? And what books should be distributed to the public? A good topic. All right, but that's that. You won't find any of their old Gaudiya Math publications. Maybe today, yes, but not in the day of Bhaktisiddhanta. So Prabhupada introduced that innovation. Very small, but nonetheless something to think, significant to think about. Okay, number 20. Srila Prabhupada installed Gaur-Nitai deities in many temples, whereas Bhaktisiddhanta never installed Gaur-Nitai deities. Mm-hmm. Now, this has been pointed out as, by some envious persons trying to find fault with the preaching of Srila Prabhupada. I personally feel that Srila Prabhupada saw his preaching as the spearhead of the Sankirtan movement. And who are the two personalities at the head of the Sankirtan movement? That's Gaur-Nitai.
Right.
But some people find fault anywhere, so let them find their fault and go to hell. All right, so Srila Prabhupada, then this is the flip side of that. Srila Prabhupada did not install Gaur-Gadadhar deities anywhere, whereas Bhaktisiddhanta and Bhaktivedanta established numerous Gaur-Gadadhar. Mm-hmm. So the worship of Gaur-Gadadhar is actually on a higher platform than the worship of Gaur-Nitai. It's sometimes we forget, and Sankirtan is all in all, but it's only the secondary part of all in all. It's not the primary part of all in all. For us, it's all in all. Sankirtan for me, Sankirtan for Prabhupada's disciples, I think, and is the all in all. But for Mahaprabhu, it's the secondary function of his appearance. And his appearance is for his own purpose. And that we have discussed briefly, and we'll discuss in more videos, the purpose of Mahaprabhu's appearance, the primary purpose, his own purpose. Mm-hmm. So, and just to mention briefly, to experience the loving sentiments of Srimati Radharani. What is her experience of Krishna? Mahaprabhu wants to taste that. So he appears as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The Sankirtan movement is a prime benediction for humanity at large. So the worship of Gaur-Gadadhar, established in many places by Bhaktisiddhanta and Bhaktivedanta. The worship of Gaur-Nitai, not established anywhere by Bhaktivedanta and Bhaktisiddhanta. Mm-hmm. But established everywhere by Srila Prabhupada, and even in our temples in South India. Here in Mexico, we have Gaur-Nitai deities. So Gaur-Nitai established everywhere, but no one had done before. And Gaur-Gadadhar, very important deities actually, not established anywhere. And so this was such a strange experience for Western devotees when they began to gather around Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj in the late 90s, or say mid-90s, or 90s. And so once upon a time, a devotee asked, Srila Puri Maharaj, why do you have Gaur-Gadadhar deities? Because that devotee is thinking only the experience of Gaur-Nitai deities. So he asked him, Srila Puri Maharaj, why do you have Gaur-Gadadhar deities? Srila Puri Maharaj looked at him with a little bit of a, like we would say in English, where are you coming from? What kind of question is that? Why do we have Gaur Gadadhar deities? And then he responded, he says, because without worshipping Gaur Gadadhar, you cannot understand Radha and Krishna. Mm-hmm. All right, so Kartik, a development. Kartik, a development. So Gaur Gadadhar, should the Vaishnavas of the world, the Western world, the Hare Krishna, we don't worship Gaur Gadadhar. Prabhupada didn't install Gaur Gadadhar. When we installed our Gaur Gadadhar deities in South India, in our temple, in the Jagannath temple, we got that criticism. Prabhupada didn't install Gaur Gadadhar. Well, Prabhupada didn't say go to Kartik either. Prabhupada didn't say have a nice big Kartik festival every year either. Mm-hmm. So you want to stop going to Kartik? Maybe, well, I wouldn't do it, but I could say...
Put all your Govardhan Shilas back on Govardhan Hill?
Yeah, put all your Govardhan Shilas back on Govardhan Hill. He didn't introduce this either, and there's a few other things out there too that he didn't say.
But there is one place where Prabhupada did say Gaudiya Vaishnavas worship the bona fide deities like Gaunitai, Jagannath Baladev, Radha-Krishna, Gaur Gadadhar.
I forget it. I think it's in Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's in a purport, and it just he mentions and or Gaunitai or Gaur Gadadhar. And it's just like, whew. It's like if he hadn't mentioned that, they would want to come and burn my temple down or something. You see? So, yeah, there's somebody gave me a Prabhupada said the other day, and I basically said, Prabhupada said so many things. Which ones are you going to follow? Which ones do you believe? Balavanta will be president. Women have 32-ounce brains. And a whole bunch of other things. Africans are actually gorillas, not humans. Prabhupada said many, many things. So which one are you going to follow? What are you going to follow? It's like the supermarket of Prabhupada says. Well, what we do follow shouldn't make us look like hypocrites. That we follow one thing, but another thing that would fit into the same category, we reject. Like this. Kartik is a development. It's in Gaudiya Sampradaya. There's slokas about Kartik. Kartik is a bona fide development, evolution process in Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And so is the worship of Gaur Gadadhar. So you will all come to Kartik, but then you will say, well, Prabhupada never introduced Gaur Gadadhar.
Right.
That means you're a moron.
Plus all the sannyasis that have their Nisringadev deities.
Nisringadev deities, all kind of things.
Yeah.
All right, moving on.
22.
Srila Prabhupada installed Krishna Balaram deities, whereas Bhaktivedanta and Bhaktisiddhanta never installed Krishna Balaram deities anywhere. Mm-hmm. But they're the main deities at the Vrindavan temple. So there are opinions about this far and wide. And one of them is that Raman Reti is a place of pastimes of the cowherd boys, right. Krishna and Balaram. Mm-hmm. Others say it has to do with Sakyaras and Prabhupada's preference in a keen observation. Others relate that further back to his his Varna, the Kayasta Brahmins, his caste.
Oh, so the Suvarnavanik.
The Suvarnavanikas. Mm-hmm. Having been in the clan, or how do they explain that, Giri?
Well, it's actually more Gaunitai than Krishna Balaram, because Suvarnavanikas, they are connected to Udarandat Thakur, who is one of the Dwadasha Gopalas, who was an associate of Nityananda Prabhu. And
Prabhupada's father was initiated by the Acharyas from the Nityananda Vamsa also.
Right.
Many devotees don't know that. Mm-hmm. Prabhupada's father took his initiation in the Nityananda Vamsa.
Mahendranath Goswami.
From Mahendranath Goswami, correct. So, could be a multiple of connections there, but it's not a standard Gaudiya deity. Right. Here's an amazing thing. Krishna Balaram deities, and there are other deities, temples, and devotees who have Krishna Balaram deities. I think there might be even some devotees may have Krishna Balaram deities in Costa Rica or North Carolina, somewhere. Some of the Ritviks have Krishna Balaram deities.
France,
Krishna Balaram deities. Now, at Mayapur, at Chandadoya Mandir, Prabhupada installed the most authentic and traditional deities in the line of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And that is where he installed Mahaprabhu standing solo next to Radha Madhava, Gaur Radha Madhava. At Yogapith, there are the same deities, and their names are Gaur Radha Madhava. And it's not just a unique thing, it's a deity, let us call it a configuration that represents the highest theistic conception and reality. Mahaprabhu is the combined form of Radha Madhava, Radha Krishna, Radha Govinda, Radha Shyamasundar. He is Radha Krishna combined. And that deity configuration is established on this earth by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. Whereas Jagannath comes from antiquity, and so many other things, Krishna himself from antiquity. But the deities of Gaur Radha Madhava at Yogapith, established by Bhaktisiddhanta, all Gaudiya Mats, when they have Radha Krishna, almost without exception, have Mahaprabhu there. Nityananda cannot stand on the same altar as Radharani also. And if you read any detailed description of Krishna Leela, whenever Balaram sees the footprints of Radharani on the ground, he turns around and goes the opposite direction so as not to even have a chance encounter with Radharani. So Nityananda cannot stand on the same level, on the same altar. So Prabhupada established those deities, but that conception is practically all but lost. And Radha Madhava and the Astashakis has dominated the stage. And down there in the little bit to the left, under all the flowers, oh yeah, look at there. What's there? Oh yeah, there's Mahaprabhu and there's the little deities. No, those are the main deities that Srila Prabhupada installed. That's another Let's Talk coming up that we've written about in the past. The deities, what should be or what was to be the deities in Srila Prabhupada's project at Mayapur. All right, so there's some innovation there. Prabhupada installing Gaur Nitai everywhere in the world, and also the flip side of not installing Gaur Gadadhar anywhere in the world, which are the primary deities in the Ragamarg section of the Sankirtan movement. Okay, we're on number 3?
24? Oh, sorry, 23.
23. This is a big innovation. Srila Prabhupada introduced the program of restaurants, such as Govindas, that would serve Krishna Prasadam to paying customers. There are no restaurants at Tirupati or anywhere in any big temple in India where you can go in a restaurant, pick up a menu, and get prasadam a la carte. Or a thali of things. All these temples have a prasadam booth, a prasadam stall where you can go and buy Mahaprasadam, which is usually a choice of two things. Some kind of a salty pungal or rice or something like that, and some kind of massive ladu or lugdu or something. That's it, usually. Kerala is a little different. You get uni upam and payasams and different things like that, but there are no restaurants anywhere in India that sell prasadam. So, but Govinda's restaurant was originally a prasadam restaurant.
Where was the first one, Gurmaharaj?
Honolulu.
Okay.
Honolulu, Hawaii was the first Govindas, and there was a system. Things were to be cooked and offered to the Lord. They were to be cooked by Brahmins. They were to be offered to the Lord either in the kitchen restaurant or taken to the temple and offered to the deity. and devotees were not supposed to eat there. The restaurants were for the non-devotees. It was for the public. It was for the what people love to call the karmis. Nowadays, a Hare Krishna restaurant, well, they've gone through some changes. Hired cooks, non-devotees, no offerings, this, that, up, down, all ways but sideways. No room for the karmis because the restaurants are filled with devotees. So,
talking for Jalpa, yeah.
Talking for Jalpa. I mean, back in the day, I must say I was guilty of such sins also. But the restaurants were not for devotees. The restaurant at Krishna Balaram Temple in Vrindavan, devotees were not allowed to go in there. And we never went in there. Never. In the time of Prabhupada, never, ever did devotees go in the restaurant. And why would you want to go in a restaurant when you could go to Prasadam Hall and take Krishna Prasadam?
Right.
Well, that's another thing. If the Prasadam is so bad that you think it's unedible, then to survive you go to the restaurant and hope you get something better and don't get the deli belly. But originally, we all took Prasadam in the Prasadam Hall. There were no restaurants. I've heard at the new Mayapur project, I was told by one of the developers that there's this triangle thing out in front. It's all glass, kind of like what they call the Louvre in Paris.
Louvre, yeah.
Yeah. Kind of looks like that. And he said, that's going to be the Pizza Hut. And I asked him, is it going to be Domino's or what? Are you going to get Domino's Pizza to do a franchise there? I mean, restaurants, Pizza Huts, donut shops in the Holy Dham. Here's a funny one for you. Householders moving to the Holy Dhams, whether it's Vrindavan or Mayapur, but I'm just going to speak about Mayapur, building their apartments, etc., etc. Well, here's this pastime, and you can check it out with anybody who can remember this. But I heard this, and it comes right from Tamal Krishna Maharaj. And there were more people there when it happened. And Srila Prabhupada went out on a morning walk, early, I believe it was early in the morning, in Mayapur. And he looked over there. There was a householder couple sitting, reading Srimad Bhagavatam on a bench. And Prabhupada stopped and said, what are they doing? And Tamal Krishna Maharaj said, they're reading Bhagavatam together, Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada said, in the Holy Dham, even husband and wife should not sit together and read the Bhagavatam. So there's a Prabhupada said for you. All of you people out there who love to just grab the Prabhupada says, well, there's a good Prabhupada said. Even married men and women should not sit together and read the Bhagavatam in the Holy Dham. So how do you get from there all the way to Grihastha ashrams in the Holy Dham, in the same Holy Dham, and creating and raising a family? Where does that come in? And the same is true to Vrindavan. Where do you find that Srila Prabhupada said he wanted all these householders to come from the West and raise families in the Holy Dham? He did say that he wanted, he on a morning walk once at the Hyderabad farm, Srila Prabhupada said, send a telegram to Los Angeles and tell all the householders to come here to Hyderabad farm. We will give each man, means each family man, I think he said 1 acre. And he can have cow and he can do this and he can do that. We will give that. One householder came. His name is Tattvadarshan or Tattvadarshi. Well, I forget his name.
Tattvadarshan, I think.
Tattvadarshan. He's been in India for many, many years, and he was part of the Hyderabad farm for some time. Srila Prabhupada didn't say, come to the Holy Dham.
Start a family.
Start a family. He said he wanted 25 sannyasis and 25 brahmacharis to run the Krishna Balaram temple. So that's another Prabhupada said. But there's not even any endeavor to do this. And the things he didn't say to do are happening in mass.
Now, most of the sannyasis now in Vrindavan are outside in their own little houses.
Yeah, I mean, that temple, Krishna Balaram temple, was so far-fetched gone from the vision of Srila Prabhupada, it's beyond even a discussion. Mm-hmm. That's how pathetic it actually is. Money's there. Oh, yeah, money's there. Lots of people. Lots of money, lots of people. Jai Prabhupada. Mm-hmm. And there are devotees who know this as well or even better than I do. Problem is, nobody wants to speak up. Or very few people speak up.
Don't rock the boat.
Shh, don't rock the boat. Whispers only. Okay, the 24. We're almost to the end of this list, folks. What?
24, yeah.
24. Srila Prabhupada introduced... Oh, this is an interesting one. Srila Prabhupada introduced the deity of Advaitacharya with a beard. With a big beard, as having a beard, whereas Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, who established the first deities of Advaitacharya and the Panchatattva at Yogapith, always showed Advaitacharya as clean-shaven. Mm-hmm. And in Chaitanya Bhagavat, Mahaprabhu makes jokes about Advaitacharya by calling him...
Nedha. Nedha.
Nedha.
Nedha. Nedha means baldy.
Baldy.
Yeah.
So Mahaprabhu was calling Advaitacharya baldy. And Bhaktisiddhanta only showed Advaitacharya clean-shaven. Mm-hmm. Shaven head, shaven face.
Even Advaita Vamsa, they show him clean shaven.
Well, then who is it that is, but prior to us?
The bowels.
Oh, right. That wasn't. I was thinking it's the bowels.
Yeah.
This sampradaya is not
it's
a sampradaya.
It's the bowel movement.
As in anal movement. They are the foulest of the foul, and they're the only ones who show Advaita with a beard.
Yeah.
So why
and a top knot.
And a top knot. So why did Prabhupada do that? Because in the West, he wanted to show that Advaitacharya is senior. He is older.
Than Mahaprabhu. Right.
Than Mahaprabhu. And he is subservient to Mahaprabhu. Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, that's a speculation. Otherwise, you're going to throw in, he didn't know. No, I think he had a purpose in that. Now, at Mayapur, there's always a debate, right? But they can't figure it out. Well, Prabhupada, look at it this way, gentlemen. In the West, Prabhupada allowed women to stand up there and do the artik. Bravo, no complaint. It's wonderful. But not in Mayapur. Because in Mayapur, you are scrutinized. You are looked at in a different way. Number one, you are looked at by Prabhupada's godbrothers. They're all gone from this planet now. But now you're looked at by their successors. And you're looked at by the Smartas and everybody else. And now you show Advaita, they're just, Prabhupada said Advaita had a beard. That he's talking in New York, it was fine, it was all great in the West. Advaita had a beard. And women were on the altar. But back in Mayapur, women aren't on the altar for obvious reasons that they understand socially. But they can't apply the same logic to understand. Now you're showing Advaita like the bowel sampradaya. Monkey see, monkey do. You know, yeah. Birds of a feather and all that stuff. You know, they can't figure these. They can't connect the dots. I mean, it's like
there's no context, no harmony.
When the number drawings came in. You know, when you were in school and you were a little toddler. You know, and you were going to school. Well, they didn't happen maybe in first grade. First, you had to learn 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you could connect the dots and draw your little bunny rabbits.
Right.
It's like they can't connect the dots. How this applies, when that applies, what to do, how to do. It's just, and now, yeah, as we talk right now, big meetings, everybody's there. Oh yeah, big meetings. This year, the big discussion is women gurus. They're going to have or not have and all this stuff. And it's disgraceful, you know. But anyway, back to this point. Advaitacharya. Does he have a beard? Well, I bet sometime in his life he must have had a beard, especially in Chaturmasi. And most old men get tired of shaving after a while, in case some of you young whippersnappers out there are wondering, all hung up on the facial hairs. But in showing the deity, Bhaktisiddhanta never showed Advaita with a beard. Nobody does. Only the disgusting bowels. Mm-hmm. So you would think, right, here in Mayapur, we don't want to identify with the Baul Sampradaya, which is massive in Bengal even to this day. Massive. We don't want to identify with the bowels and by our look, but they can't do the balance thing. Well, Prabhupada said, and they quote when he said and described Advaita for this play, etc., etc.
Right.
But at the same time, they wouldn't think to let Malati on the altar to do an artik. Would they? At Krishna Balaram temple. Although they may make, what's her name, Malati? Urmila Mata. They might make her a guru, but they'd never let her on the altar, right? But they'll put a beard.
Maybe now they would, I don't know.
But they put a beard on Advaita and identify with the bowels. So it's like they can't connect the dots properly. It's like they're supposed to draw one thing and you're looking at, what the hell are they doing? It's like the kid connecting the 1 to the 4. No, the 4 is the foot, It's like, and he connects all the things because he can't count 1, 2, 3, 4. He can't connect the dots, how they're supposed to be connected. Anyway, the beard of Advaita Acharya. And the last one on this list, Srila Prabhupada introduced a very simple system for all the Gaudiya Vaishnava rituals, such as Nivedyam. Nivedyam means the offering, the bhog offering. We don't use that word much anymore, but that's what the offerings are called, Nivedyam. Now we just call it the bhog offering. Artik ceremony, Abhishek, pujas, artiks, yagya, all these rituals artik is kind of a ritual, but you know what I'm talking about, all these things.
Ceremonies.
Ceremonies. He introduced them in a very simplified system, much different, very simplified, very abridged system than what you find in the Narada Pancharatra, or the Hari Bhakti Vilas, or Bhajan Rahasya, or the Sat Kriya Sardipika. These are the standard, these are the books that describe to us how to do a Janmastami, how to do an Abhishek, how to do the pujas, how to do all the different things that are going on in Gaudiya Sampradaya. So in the Gaudiya Mat, you will find these things extensively followed in most places. But Srila Prabhupada's systems were very much simplified. I used to call the Yagya system the Nama Om system. It'd be just Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya, and everybody's responding, and it's very, very simple, and it's very beautiful, and it's sufficient. And but nowadays things have evolved to more elaborate systems of
overcomplicated in one sense.
Overcomplicated, yeah. Actually, in the descriptions of advancement in Raganuga Bhakti, one of the things that a devotee is found to abandon, and that's the use of mudras in puja. Mudras are like hand gestures. This is a matsya, and there's kunarma, and all these, the go and the cow and everything for pure, instead of just 3 drops of water on an artik lamp, and you do some mudras over that, and that purifies the lamp. But it's mentioned there that when a devotee advances into Raganuga Bhakti, he abandons the use of mudras, because this use of mudras, this formality, puts a distance between him and the deity. It is an obstruction to progress in Raganuga. So really, what is Raganuga is the system that ultimately culminates in spontaneous love, even where you have that, I forget who it is, offers is so intoxicated by the presence of Krishna and so ecstatic, he peels a banana.
Vidura's wife.
Vidura's wife, she peels the banana, 32 ounces. She peels the banana, throws the banana away, and Krishna chews on the banana peel. You see?
Right.
So Prabhupada gives a simple system. 3 drops of water purified, do this, that. Very simple system. Worship the Lord with love and devotion. He's practically starting us off at the platform of Raganuga as it comes to deity worship. But where are we 50 years later? Introduce all this hoo-ha about how to do Achman and all the mantras for putting on tilak and all this and touching water to all the orifices and eyes and the sika and mudras all over the place and ta-da, 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 and a big show, but they've lost sight of the highest deity configuration on planet Earth, Gaur Radha Madhava. It have been completely obscured. And now there's just the Astashakis. And you know what? Well, it was over a decade ago. I was there for some particular meeting, and I asked the devotee, I said, I just asked one devotee, but I knew if I continued my survey, I would find the same thing. I asked one devotee, just randomly in the garden. I said, how long you been here at the Mayapur? He said, I've been here a month. It's really ecstatic and everything. I said, oh, really? I said, and this is before they installed their Panchatattva or anything, and it was just the Astashaki and Radha Madhava. And I said, did you see the deity of Mahaprabhu in the temple, Gaur Radha Madhava? He said, no, there's no deity of Mahaprabhu in the temple. I said, yes, there is. Go back there and look. Look down at the feet of Madhava and then cast your glance a little to the left and you'll see these very small deities there. These are the primary Mula Vigraha of this temple. These are the deities that Prabhupada installed. And there's a meaning to this. Whereas later on, the Astashakis are established. There's a meaning to that. And the meaning is night and day, folks. I'm sorry. Radha Krishna and the Astashakis is not the highest conception of divine Leela, divine Ras, or anywhere even close to it. But Gaur Radha Madhava represents the highest conception of theism, the highest theistic thought, the highest form of divinity that's ever graced the earth. And that is what Srila Prabhupada established there, because that's what Bhaktivedanta established at Yogapith. And then Prabhupada did the same thing in Calcutta, because Calcutta, you're still in the Gaudiya aura, where things matter according to Gaudiya. And Prabhupada had painted on the gate that logo. I don't have it right here, but the logo of the Gaudiya Mutt is painted on the gate of Chandadorya Mandir, and nobody even talks about it anymore. Nobody points it out and tells what it is. It's just a painting. Nobody looks at it. Nobody knows what it is. Prabhupada had the logo of Gaudiya Mutt painted on the gates on each side of Chandadorya Mandir as you enter from the road. From what road? Bhaktisiddhanta Marg. And the deities of Gaur Radha Madhava. And that is all but overshadowed and lost. The people are like, oh, we still have the deities. They're there. It's like, yeah. You still have the little deities there, but you've lost sight of the conception because you're all looking at Radha Madhava and the Astashakis, and it's so grand and it's so beautiful. But that's a deviation from the original conception. But given the size of the egos and everything, it's like... Actually, years ago, Bhakti Swami pointed this out extensively, and he was outvoted. And they went ahead with what you see there now today. So after spending hundreds of millions of dollars, ISKCON is going to build this unbelievable, and it's a unbelievable temple, and they're still not presenting the highest conception. And people will say, well, the Panchatattva's there, that's Sankirtan. It's like, yes, but Sankirtan is not the highest conception. What is Mahaprabhu's conception? Sankirtan is the highest for us, but what is his conception? Who is he? And then there's the higher conception of Sankirtan, of who is he, and what Sankirtan is actually all about. And that is represented there in the deities of Gaur, Radha, Madhava. But they've been completely overshadowed and, really speaking, minimized. And there's a history to that, which we might cover in another Let's Talk. So those were 25 innovations, although a few of these were not innovations. They were not deviations. They were just different, very different. Like Prabhupada establishing Gaur Nitai everywhere, but not just establishing Gaur Gadadhar anywhere. Right. You know? Prabhupada not establishing Kartik as important to come to the Holy Dham, yet it's become the second most important festival in the Hare Krishna movement. Or there's Ratha Yatras, Gaur Purnima in Mayapur, and Kartik in Vrindavan. It's like, it's the premier, actually it's more the premier festival than any other. Yeah. So anyway, we thought these would be interesting things. There may be other things. Just thought these would be interesting things. For me, they were very interesting, just to recount, how Srila Prabhupada did various things. Srila Prabhupada, but it's like, the story, give them an inch and take a mile. Mm-hmm. Let them do artik, let them throw grains in the fire, and let them cook for the deities, and the next thing you know, they want to take sannyas and they want to be gurus. Call me Prabhu. Hmm? Oh, Gary, you did point out, just since it is a big topic at Mayapur, and maybe they will elect a Vaishnavi guru this year. That's more power to them. But you and I had a little private chuckle there that they'll have to change the Guru Gayatri.
Yeah, absolutely.
That when Guru Ma gives second initiation to one of her disciples, be it a man or a woman, then the standard Guru mantra, Ayin Gurave Namaha, and the Guru Gayatri, which all of you second initiated devotees out there, young and old, will have to be changed. Because all mantras to feminine entities, to Radharani, to Lakshmi, to Parvati, to Durga, to all the feminine aspects of the divinity in terms of their form, Lakshmi, Radharani, Parvati, etc. Any mantras to them is in a feminine, how do you say it? It's of a feminine gender.
Yep.
So they will have to change the Guru mantra and the Guru Gayatri, because the Guru mantra and the Guru Gayatri, which all of us chant today, is masculine.
Yep.
So I doubt that they would even, consider that. But actually, it's just like A, B, C, you fall off the cliff,
Exactly. Yeah.
This is not important, that's not important. Pretty soon, nothing's important.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing's important. So we were having a laugh about that. But you know what? Unless we tell them, because you know what? They don't even know. They don't even know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even the sannyas mantra, the sannyas Gayatri mantra, we call it a Gayatri because it's chanted along with the Gayatri. It's not actually a Gayatri, it's a mantra. And it's not the Avantipur Brahman mantra, it's a Ragamarg mantra. In all of ISKCON, all the sannyasis, there must be 100 of them at least, right? Mm-hmm. They all chant it wrong.
Yeah.
They all chant it wrong. And I'm not going to get into that right now, but I know for a fact they all chant it wrong. And I know why they come to do it, and this, that, and everything about it. I've spent my adult life pretty much as a sannyasi, and I know very much about where our tradition comes from, where the mantras come from, who evolved them, and how are they to be chanted, and they got it wrong. And the reason they got it wrong is Prabhupada didn't give them any details. And trying to figure it out on their own, well, they got it wrong. It's a small thing, but they did get it wrong. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj pointed it out, that is not correct, what they are doing. All right, so I'm not going to get into that either. So, anyway, it's hard to avoid controversy because we live in a world of deviation, deception, falsities, all kind of things, and these things are always trying to attack the substantial progress. So people found fault with the names that Prabhupada gave to deities. They found fault with his allowing women on the altar or to offer sacrifice, so many things. But we consider these things not deviations, but innovations for the progress of the Krishna consciousness movement. But we will also be foolish to think that no innovations may happen. But pretty much, I would say, if somebody say, well, any word of advice for somebody who might be interested, I'd say we've done about enough innovations, but what we might do is we might look into certain areas where Srila Prabhupada did not have the time to develop. Like we've developed Kartik as a major international festival, and Kartik, and even devotees follow Kartik Vrat in other part of the world. Mm-hmm. We might look at doing some things that His Divine Grace would have liked to see us develop. Maybe the introduction of Gaur Gadadhar deities in certain places, maybe. I'm just saying maybe. Little things like learning how to make and or wear the Brahman thread of your sampradaya. It's like if you're in Italy and you wear the robes of a Cappuccino monk, and another Catholic sees you on the street, he thinks you're a member of the Cappuccino monks thing. You can buy the monks' robes online. You can buy the Cappuccinos, you can buy the Jesuits. So if you dress like a Jesuit, we're going to think you're a Jesuit. In Kerala, there are everybody wears a lungi, white lungi. Christians wear them, Hindus wear them, and Krishnas wear Muslims.
Yeah, Muslims. Yeah.
Hindus, Christians, and Muslims all wear lungis. But you can tell the difference by how they fold it. Mm-hmm. There's 3 different ways to fold it. The Muslim folds it one way, the Christian another, and the Hindu yet another one. And the Muslim riots break out. The men are all dressed the same, color-coded the same. They all got black hair and brown skin. They just look at how you got your dhoti folded and know which side of the team you're on and then bash your head in. If you wear a puggaree like a Sikh and tie your beard up in a knot and go to Delhi, everybody's going to think you're a Sikh. Mm-hmm. So in India, you are what you look like. You look like a hippie, you're a hippie. You look like in Bombay, there's a saying, lungi means bungi. You dress like a bungi, you are a bungi. Mm-hmm. You dress like a Sikh, you are a Sikh. So little things. Our Brahman thread is unique to all the other sampradayas, but nobody even knows about it, but Prabhupada knew about it. We didn't have time to do all these little things, So sometimes we might pick up on something His Divine Grace wanted, small or big. We might try to carry that out. Most importantly, though, I think we should look at what He did want, what He did do, and try to maintain that. And He did want Gaur Radha Madhava as the primary principal deities at Mayapur. Yes, He may have said He wanted Astashaki, but He didn't say, oh, by the way, make Astashaki 8 foot tall and let the whole thing overshadow Gaur Radha Madhava. He didn't say that, did He? But then, the way they connected the dots, which that means they didn't understand what Gaur Radha Madhava was in the first place. And we're probably thinking, well, there wasn't room for Gaur Nitai, so Prabhupada just put Mahaprabhu. It's like, no, that's not the reason. If you do look at the altar, the original altar, it is small even for Gaur Radha Madhava. And you couldn't have fit Gaur Nitai on there if you wanted to, right? But that's not why He did it. There's a meaning behind it. And it's the highest meaning of theism that you can conjure, let's say, in the form of a deity. Mahaprabhu, Sri Chaitanya, Radha Krishna, Nahiyanya, Doyeka Roop. The divine couple in one form. All right, so those were 25 things. We hope they're of interest to our listeners. Gary, anything?
Nothing to add, and we'll post those on the Facebook page.
I think we'll just, the one about giving the names, because I'm not so sure that Prabhupada was the first or the only one to do that.
Sure.
I know we did mention how it was older tradition. We'll just take that one out, so there'll end up being 24.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all very much for watching. Hare Krishna.